It is.
That's, bottom line. That's what an Indian reservation is. It's a concentration camp. And in Canada, it's even more against the human rights, indigenous rights globally. It's against all of those rights because we are still being held down by the premise of the Indian Act, which means I am a ward of the state. I have no actual rights. They take care of all my needs, and they're not doing a good job. I come from the Blood Reserve, and we're the largest reserve in Canada, and we've come a long way. We have doctors, we have lawyers, we have school teachers, we have professors, we have accountants. We have it all. We have the resources to do that, to develop internally, because we have a large ranching, farming community. We have water, we have forests, we have mines. We have all the resources that it would take a ordinary country or community to grow and survive. But at the same time, we're still being held down by the yoke of the Indian Act. And the national chief is talking about it. They all talk about it, but this time it might be real that they will dismantle the Indian Act and create some kind of sovereignty or sovereign government process for the Indians to develop on their own. That's what we want.
Mm-hmm.
But, again, through that self-government process, the government is saying, here's the guidelines. You really don't have a choice. We're still going to have title to all this land, to all these resources, and you're going to be on your own after this. And in one way it's good, and the other way it's still a form of a concentration camp.
Yeah.
We still get to wear the Star of David.
Yeah.
And, for any Jewish people out there, I'm not trying to be funny or anything. We are carrying the Star of David around with us because we are segregated.
Yeah.
We are discriminated against. You look at all these women that get killed. The Mounties aren't doing their jobs. And they're fooling around on a job for 10 years, and a few more girls get killed. Well, it's not their problem. It's their responsibility to act like Mounties. And
to stop the killing.
And that's what the RCMP was formed in the first place. They were brought out west to make treaty with the Indians and to protect their interests. That's the mandate of the RCMP. It's not there now because of corruption, because of cronyism, because of racism. These things exist within the RCMP. I used to be an RCMP officer. I know firsthand how this entity is supposed to work and how it does work.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some serious major problems going on out there in all situations of indigenous society. But on the other hand, I'm an optimist. I've seen communities prosper. I've seen communities really grow. But again, we have to get past that legal point of what is and what isn't the Indian Act and how it has to be changed for our benefit and the benefit of all Canadians. Basically, what it comes down to is the Canadian government, the American government, the Mexican government have to make a new start with indigenous peoples to share the resources of our territories in an amicable and sustainable way for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way. We've had the Arab Spring here. We might have Indian summer if things don't change because there's a whole bunch of things really heating up across the Americas. In South America, they're doing a better job now with indigenous communities because the indigenous people are electing presidents to their country who are indigenous. And they're forming different ways of protecting the earth. So, they have really good laws down there that are developing. And, USA, any other foreign entity, I think it's over for you. Mm-hmm. Your walls are crashing. And when the indigenous people really start to organize, you're looking at a lot of people in the Americas here who have rights and want them to be respected. And that's not just for us, it's for the earth. That's the big deal. That's the main thing, it's for the earth.
Exactly. Well, and just anytime you have a society, the society can only be as healthy and as good as its individual parts. So, if we're a democracy and we're hopeful, we shouldn't be racist. I know Canada, the Canadian government, Harper's government certainly is racist. They've said out loud that they are pro-Israeli, which makes them anti-Palestinian. They've said that they, I can't remember the other one, it just slipped my mind. But I mean, they said Islam is the biggest threat to Canada. You can't say things like that out
Well, you know,
loud and not
yeah.
appear a fool, can you?
Exactly. Stephen Harper is really delusional in his view of what Canada could be. And his new anti-crime bill that passed, or was going to pass this week, it's a pretty scary piece of legislation because it's basically saying we want to build more prisons and fill them up.
Yeah, exactly. You know, because that's what I figure
If
is...
that's the case, then we better have some corporate presidents in there because of their crimes against the earth and their continuing crimes, and that's not going to go away. Everybody's going to really start pointing the fingers at the right persons.
People are going to start realizing
exactly what's going on and who's actually doing the wrongdoings to the earth and to each other.
Yeah.
And it's happening globally. Like Putin in Russia, he got called out by his own people here because they were telling him, "You rigged the election.
Mm-hmm.
We know you did." You know, and he's really having a difficult time. So we'll see how that all turns out. You know, there are situations globally here that we can all relate to, and that's the important part. That if you relate, then really try and understand what's going on, and you know, position yourself to do something about it. And we have a caller on the line. Oh, I think she's writing that question down. So here we are in the great city of Edmonton, the capital of Alberta, and also the capital of one of the, if not the highest emitter of carbon dioxide in the world because of the production of oil sands, because of the production of oil and gas, and the refining of it here in our great province of Edmonton. So do we have poverty on our reserves here in Alberta? Of course. Some reserves have nothing, and some reserves have quite a bit. So poverty does exist, even on my own reserve. I'm first to admit it and see it, and I try to address it. Oh, got a dial tone. Try again, caller.
My apologies, yes. We did have a caller, and the caller wanted to make a point, and he did tell me, and I asked him if he'd like to go over the air. He didn't want to be identified, but that's okay. He just wanted to say that life is what we make it, and that really all we have is time. That's all we have to share, and that was his feeling. I understand that maybe some people get tired of hearing about the plight of...
Well, that's okay. It's as long as you have a position, an opinion. The apathy that exists in mainstream society toward a lot of things is really scary because, I'm going to keep driving my car. I don't care about my grandkids not being able to live here anymore because of that. All the emissions that are building up globally, we're feeling it, climate change and the effects of that, El Nino, La Nina. All these things are occurring because of places like Alberta.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right. I mean, I think the environment is, the earth is the one gift that we were given, and we're not looking after it, we're not showing it any respect, and I think that's for everybody. Like, everybody lives on this earth, and we're all humans. We all deserve respect, but we all deserve to be able to have some control over its misuse.
Yeah, well, if we all looked at ourselves and how much we consume individually, and try and address that, you'll be able to really see how big your mirror is.
Yeah.
Some people need a really big mirror to look at all their stuff, right? And some people in the world, it takes a hand mirror for them to say, okay, I live in the forest, I live with the forest, I live with all things that go to the forest, and I'm no bigger than the forest.
Yeah.
And if we could start thinking like that on a global scale, that we as a society, and we as the peoples of the earth, understand that we have a finite effect on what we do. And and it's happening. People are changing. Corporations are trying to get green. And the conference in Durban is really critical that they come up with something this time. And again, Canada, the dummy on the block, is trying to tell other countries, hey, our position is perfectly sane.
Yeah.
But it's like sticking a plastic bag over your head and slowly tightening the string and say, I'm okay, okay, you know.
Yeah, it is,
And
very much.
Yeah, that's Alison Redford and Stephen Harper.
Mm-hmm.
They're on the outside pulling the string because
all of us have got our heads in it.
They just want to put the money into the corporations and their own funds. You know, that's what's happening.
But you know, I agree I agree with the caller that life is what you make of it, and that's all very true, and we all have time. Some of us have more time than others, but I also think that life is what you make of it. But if you, for instance, my life as a youngster, I was very privileged. My dad was a doctor, so there was certainly money, and there was education. Not a lot of money, because back in the day there wasn't. But and I also was slightly privileged because I have an English accent, and people kind of were softer or, you know, kinder to you because of that. But I've also seen the other side of it. I've been a woman all my life, and it's very much a man's world. So there are lots of inequalities, and to me the idea is we're not going to sort them out here on Moccasin Telegraph, but to make people aware that there are inequalities so vast within our own country that people don't realize.
Well, a lot of general mainstream society is waking up to all of the major issues that are going on. But again, it's the apathy of the voting public. I mean, if we elected this guy, I mean,
that's
that
the
just
biggest
shows
embarrassment.
How foolish a low amount of people voting can steer a country into craziness, which means, you know, we're going down a serious path here. And if we don't straighten out our thinking, we're going to suffer. But we're not only going to suffer, we're going to make everybody else suffer.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening in Durban. You know, the Canadian delegation down there are trying to bully other countries into thinking their way. But the reality is, you know, we have the ability to come up with alternative energy sources that are not going to killing the earth. You know, like Japan wants to turn off all of their nukes and go back to something else, and they will.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're that determined and that embarrassed by what has happened with the radiation that is still being felt globally from Fukushima.
Yeah.
And you know, that's going to stop. That's going to clear up this year. I mean, hopefully before the end of the year. They're saying 10 years, but I think they have a lot more going on at that plant right now to really contain it. And we'll see. You know, and you know, Japan don't feel too bad because you couldn't have foreseen something that horrible happening. You know, at that scale.
Well, again, I wonder, was it you who told me that those were nuclear plants from America, and that America insisted that Japan have them, so because Japan could be then independent for its power source?
Yeah.
Like, that to me is
somebody made money, right?
Well,
so the corporations that designed and built those things with Japanese yen, they made a lot of money, and there's quite a few of them on that island. And, you know, they really woke up quick and said, no, we got to turn these off because of what the potential is.
To me, that's just